Axiom Verge is a Metroid-inspired indie game developed by Thomas Happ, and no one else. Yeah, it was developed by a single person. It released back in March on PS4 and in May on Steam. Now, firstly, I don't really want to call this a Metroidvania game because it borrows a lot from classic Metroid, but it's really nothing like the explorative Castlevania games like Symphony of the Night. Well, I mean, other than it being a game about exploration with a large open map. You play as Trace, a scientist who stumbles across an alien world after a lab explosion. After meeting with a bizarre alien race who appears in the shape of a disembodied mechanical face, he agrees to help them in their endeavors to prevent an enemy called Athetos from destroying their homeworld. That's the story at face value. It does go a lot deeper and honestly a little bit confusing, though I myself found it pretty interesting. On your journey, you'll explore the planet, collecting new weapons, power-ups, and blasting aliens along the way. The game is very similar to Metroid on NES. I wouldn't really compare it to Super Metroid like I've seen others do. A lot of criticism I've seen about this game is that it doesn't quite accomplish the same feats that Super Metroid did, and I don't really see that to be fair in the least. Axiom Verge is inspired by Metroid on NES, and it further expands on the elements introduced in that game. If you ask me, it makes your game a lot more original if you build off the basic formula instead of one a little more fleshed out already. The game also reminds me a little bit of Cave Story in regards to both the control scheme and the amount of inventive weapons you're able to collect and use. There's a lot of weapons in this game, and it's actually likely that you only encounter half of them on your first playthrough. That is, unless you're very explorative. Finding new weapons is very exciting, and it won't be long before you find a couple that you really enjoy using. They're all very diverse. No two weapons feel alike, and it creates a lot of opportunities for various playstyles. The Axiom Disruptor serves as your main weapon. As you progress through the game, you'll unlock new functions for it, such as a drill that can break through blocks, and a grappling hook that allows you to swing across gaps. Each new ability increases your maneuverability, eventually to a degree so great that you're able to explore the entire world very thoroughly. It's just one of those games where you feel like a total badass by the end of the game. Possibly the coolest function of the Axiom Disruptor is the distortion field. With this, you can fire a beam that'll corrupt enemy sprites, making them function in handicapped ways. You can also use it to restore corrupted game assets, clearing a path, or to corrupt tiles in the background, creating platforms. This is a pretty unique idea that, until now, I haven't really seen done really well. Though use of the thing kind of thins in frequency later on in the game, I would have liked to see the thing developed much further, but what is here is pretty damn cool. The idea of corrupting the game being a game mechanic is so cool to me. It reminds me of the time a friend and I cart-tilted Super Mario Bros. 3 and we played the entire game with broken visuals. Axiom Verge's art style is a bit of an oddity to me. The whole robotic, dismembered face thing has always made me feel on edge, but Axiom Verge's stylistic 8-bit approach created character design that I found creepy yet somehow enthralling. The environments often sport a gross and organic vibe, being on an alien planet where beating hearts and organs substitute as fauna. Again, it's got a very Metroid vibe to it, though Axiom Verge does manage to create a vibe of its own. Sound effects are harsh and malformed, and despite being 8-bit, the larger boss creatures wear breathing and pulsating hides of flesh as they spur relentless amounts of bullets your way. The boss fights are a pretty good time, figuring out their attack patterns and locating their weak points. It's absolutely classic. However, one or two of the later boss fights do suffer from a frustrating difficulty spike. The world map is really helpful. Unlike the Metroid games, there was never a time where I felt totally lost without any idea as to what to do next. Part of what really helps this is the ability to place reminders on the map. This way, if you encounter an area that you suspect a later obtained ability or tool will allow access, you can then mark it on the map so you can find it again later. That's not to say that the map is too helpful. It only represents each room with a square and nothing more. It keeps track of where you've been and where you can go, but outside of that, it doesn't ever hold your hand in regards to exploring the game world. It's a great balance that hits the mark just right. One thing that is a little off-putting about Axiom Verge is the price tag. Indie games often cost $10, $15 tops. Axiom Verge will run you $20, and if you're in Canada, $22 on Steam. This is the reason I was deterred from purchasing it for so long. The game is about 10 hours long, longer if you go back and find all of the weapons, collectibles, and lore. All in all though, Axiom Verge is a fantastic game that Metroid and Metroidvania fans are likely to love. Even if you're like me and you're not really that into Metroidvania, you might still get a solid amount of enjoyment out of it. I highly recommend Axiom Verge, but whether you're comfortable with paying $20 for a good 10-hour Metroidvania, Well, that's up to you. If not, definitely keep an eye out for when the game goes on sale.